Welcome back to more Simpsons Unhinged, and this is episode number 15. So, out of the first 40, I want to do. What am I? 3/8. So I'm 36% of the way through. So let's take a look at the first 15. The first one was Lady Lisa Goes Gaga, in which we see Lisa try to deal with Lady Gaga being a Christ-like figure when she was unpopular. That '90s show I talk episode when I talk about Marge and Homer actually going through some trials and tribulations before Bart's birth, including Marge being with her professor boyfriend and Homer trying to do grunge. I can't remember the episode, but yeah, Homer and Bongo, and when Homer loses Bongo, his faithful companion, after he bites Mr. Burns and has to be shipped uptown, and Abe practically is told to wear a different wardrobe, and Homer couldn't trust Abe or a dog. Homer at the bat, we talked about the famous one that saw them beat Speed the Cosby Show first run. Both had first run episodes when The Simpsons were on Thursdays. It worked out. Then we talked about the Olympics one in season 21, in which we saw the curling and all that, and giving Canada's warmest winter city, Vancouver. Then season 11's Maud dying, the Maud Steph episode that turned Ned into an overbearing person and gave Homer one of his worst moments of being jerk ass Homer. Season 15, tis the 15th season when Homer actually is told to sleep on the couch after buying an expensive astrolabe. He tries to make it his mission to make amends for everything, but Ned can't give Homer the break, so he gets angry. He gets weird. Season nine's Principal and the Pauper. Yes, we went there. You know, the episode that the Simpsons jumped the shark, and everyone thought that the fraud Skinner is better than the real Skinner. Practically egged as being a bitch. Season five, Homer and Apu. You know, I just had to give an Apu episode some credence, and I talked about Apu and how it could have been easily said that he went to New Delhi to open up that place for Steve Barnes. And then season seven's Lisa the vegetarian, the groundbreaking one in which Lisa's character got changed to a vegetarian, and how maybe the Simpsons are keeping her vegetarian because Paul McCartney said that was the only concession. And then when Paul dies, Lisa will turn into a meat eater. I did talk about season 22's Love is a Many Strangled Thing. That's the one in which Homer is told not to strangle Bart and all that because Dr. Sander, unfortunately, it comes out badly in that Homer strangles Bart just to keep Bart's bad tendencies at check. And basically, it was the Simpsons' excuse to say that Bart deserves to be strangled. Negatively reinforced, yes, but strangling, that doesn't help anything. And then I talked about Todd White House Fellows of Forsaking Me, season 31. That's the one in which Todd questions God's assistance after he takes Maud away and he can't put Maud's face to everything. Ned decides to banish Todd to The Simpsons till he finds religion. Homer and Ned are in comas, and Todd prays for is that, and so does Bart. But Bart basically tries to get his way out of it. Season 35's Lisa gets an F1. We talked about that episode in which Lisa in Formula One racing and how it was great and all that, and how Bart was kind of a suck up and all that, and how Homer and Marge's parental norms were switched. And lastly, we talked about the gay marriage episode in season 16, something about marrying last week, and how I kind of got pissed off because the Simpsons were parading the Stanley Cup, pissing off Canadians like yours truly. But I talked about how Homer basically gave up his gay marriage bias to work for the almighty dollar. Today we're going to be taking a look at a season 32 episode, and this episode has something with this distinct laugh. Ha! That's right. We're going to do the end of Krabappel episode, Diary Queen, and see how this plays out. Jerkass Homer, Marge's worries, Bart's pranks, Lisa's causes, Maggie not talking a lot, Grandpa being senile, Patty and Selma boring Marge, Arnie Sif is a jerk, Chief Wiggum making things happen, Mr. Burns being a dick. You can never stop the Simpsons. Heaven knows they've been trying for years and they still come back for more. 37 seasons is a bit much, don't you think? It's a crazy Simpsons. Something happens. A do 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 do. This is not a clip show. Have no fear. I've got topics for years. So this is a picture of Bart Simpson reading a diary. Is it Lisa's diary? Actually, strangely enough, no. He's reading someone else's diary. Here's the story. So we are in season 32 on February 21st, 2021, the show that actually got booted a week because of Daytona 500. So Ned holds a yard sale, and Bart and Milhouse actually buy several books to record a stunt. Unfortunately, that doesn't work out so well, and the boys actually discover uh, Edna's old diary among the books. They actually end up pranking the school staff, so they buy Edna's old diary kind of as a way to get in all that. So anyway, Millhouse was actually trying to tell Bart, don't go into Krabappel's privacy and all that. Bart starts reading the diary and actually discovered a page in which Edna wrote that Bart actually did have potential in succeeding in school. Convinced of this, that Krabappel actually found some happiness and positivity in Bart, he decides to pick up the pace and does well in school. He gets an A on a test. He doesn't do a skull on his answer key, and it was just shocking and all of that. Actually, can't remember who. I think it was Miss Payton that was his teacher. But anyway, Bart passes the test. The family celebrates. Unfortunately, Marge and Lisa have their doubts of all that, thinking that he cheated. Although Bart did tell them that he realized that Krabappel actually does have some good things about him, and that actually inspired him to do better. So Lisa, for some stupid reason, decides to try to figure out he's cheated, but he didn't cheat. They couldn't find any way of cheating. But then Lisa finds the treehouse, the diary in the treehouse, and realizes that Bart is having that it was the diary. However, Lisa stresses out, realizing should she tell Bart that his motivation actually is her cat in essence, or practically that let Bart be happy. Lisa almost goes through some prescription medication, and this was actually the last episode that Dr. Hibbert was played by Harry Shearer and not by Kevin Michael Richardson. So basically, Lisa is unsure about this. It stresses her out, as I said. Bart decides to enter the school spelling bee. He does okay, but then Lisa decides to tell Bart herself that his motivation was because of Edna's pet cat. Bart, unfortunately, feels depressed and hides in his treehouse alone. However, Ned decides to reveal to Bart that there was a story that wasn't in the diary. The Flanders family gathered for family court or something, and Ned had the bright idea to leave Springfield forever. Todd basically wants to leave because of the ladybugs and all that. And that has been explained in a few episodes, including the one that Lisa becomes a babysitter. That Todd and Rod are basically scared of ladybugs, and Lisa says they'll be eaten alive in middle school. And Rod wants to leave because of all the stuff that Homer has done to them. So basically, Ned says going 3-0 until Edna then puts her foot down, saying no, and basically gives the speech that she made in one of the trilogy episodes about how people like Bart need help and all that. And she decides to stay to help Bart because she knows Bart has her potential and all that. And Bart then decides to return the diary to Ned as a thank you and all that, and says, "Damn it, Flanders, why do you have to make me feel better about myself?" Ned will reads the diary and is brought to tears over an entry where Edna says being married to him made her dreams come true. Well, obviously, because Edna wanted to get married to Skinner so badly, but Skinner had a lot of baggage, including Agnes. Yeah, I know. She's not his real mother, and Skinner should have stood up to her more. I wish he did. And of course, to also state about that whole 15th, that whole trilogy episode about the archival recording and all that, is the one that Bart is says that he's been put in summer detention and all that for doing bad, and that his sister is doing better than everything, and says that he doesn't think he's going to pass fourth grade, and she wants to leave town with Mo, but unfortunately, though, she decides to stay in Springfield, pissing off Mo and all that. But actually, it was a plant because Bart planted it so that he and Nelson could steal all the school stuff, and he writes "Munch my butt." So, and then it was a great montage at the end with Edna's moments, such as watching the Bob Newhart show. Of course, you know where Marshall Wallace was a member of the show. Bart writing on the chalkboard, and we'll talk about that later. But anyhow, it was actually good. Her Marshall Wallace's estate cleared her appearance and was compensated for it through archive recordings. Of course, the show didn't give a farewell to Edna because they were not aware that she was ill and all that. It was this episode was an attempt to memorialize her, even though that special Edna also's there too. And the producers decided not to reveal how Edna died, although some people say Homer had a hand in that by accident. So anyway, it was just huge and all that. 1.4 million fans watched it. Um, People said this was a different kind of arc for The Simpsons. It's on an uplifting trajectory until Lisa knocks it off course and ends in a life-affirming crash. And said that basically Bart's final remark, "I'll go over the edge if you try to make me feel better." I think he said that to Ned too. Is skewered all that and said, the most heartwarming part is Bart got closure. Absolutely, Bart really needed the closure and all that. So that is how the episode played out. And now let's talk about the aftermath. So, of course, the picture you see now is, of course, Edna, Jess, and Bart writing, "I will never be a teacher's pet." Because I think that Edna, underneath it all, didn't want Bart to conform to normality, even though that Bart sometimes tries. So, the question on everyone's lips is there's a couple of things. First of all, let's talk about Lisa being a jerk and all that. Was Lisa trying to screw over Bart? I mean, was Lisa jealous that Bart actually did well in school? Why she should be jealous, I don't know. She should never have been jealous. So I don't know. Lisa, I think, was trying to spare Bart's feelings. But why did she have to leave it out? Like, all Lisa did was make Bart feel bad, make Lisa a giant villain, and make her as hated as most people think she's hated. A lot of people hate Lisa for her outspoken views and all that. I compare her to Emma from The Simpsons. I mean, from Degrassi and all that. Lots of similarities. But the simple fact is that, was Lisa jealous of Bart? Possibly. But Lisa's like, Bart fails so badly. Like, there has to be cheating. Despite the fact Bart lets it air out that he feels that Krabappel had faith in him, and so he thought he needed to be a better person and all that. Why Marge was being a prick in this, I don't know. But yeah, Lisa being a prick. It's not the first or last time that Lisa being a prick about it. Lisa, throughout her life, the episode Bart Hood? Lisa, throughout her life, is jealous that Bart gets all the attention. Even though that Bart thinks everyone's paying attention to Lisa, Lisa says, no, they're paying attention to you and all that. So anyway, and remember the episode Smarter and Smarter when we find out that Maggie has a better IQ than Lisa, and Lisa goes through a self-destructive path trying to find her thing, trying to turn Goff into a cheerleader, into a stand-up comedian and all that, and can't do it. And then basically the family thinks that she's really jealous of Maggie. So Lisa runs away to the museum, and then Maggie is found out that it wasn't her. It was Lisa trying to help Maggie with her preschool acceptance test. And Lisa, I guess her IQ got higher, which is pretty cool and all that. But Lisa does have jealousy and all that towards certain characters, even not in the Simpsons universe. More on that later. But of course, let's talk about the main plot. It's about Edna. Not enough episodes about Edna are talked about. There is an Simpsons episode. Can't remember the episode. I remember it's the one that a yo-yo craze hits Springfield Elementary, and Krabappel takes away Bart's yo-yo after he kills the fish. But Bart, for some dumb reason, decides to, well, he gets his yo-yo and then decides to plant revenge on Krabappel by answering that personal ad as Woodrow and then put the picture of Gordie Howe 1950 on it. Strap your skates in, Gordie, you're going in. That was kind of cool that you put Gordie Howe into a Simpsons episode. But the simple fact is that, you know, Bart feels bad for it and lets Edna down quite well. So, Bart does have feelings for Krabappel and has sympathy towards Krabappel. Remember the episode? Crapola. What was that episode? There was that one episode in which Bart is told to do a World War I paper in a month, and they gave him a month's time, but Bart couldn't help but prank watch wrestling and get into Milhouse's uncle's military vehicle. And he never did it. He had to do it, and then because of the length of the punishment and all that, Krabappel couldn't be with Skinner and all that. Well, Skinner actually blew them off because he needed to get Agnes out of the tub. And then, of course, Bart takes Edna to the movies and all that, and Lisa laughs at him. But Bart says, I had to take care of her. I mean, she got spurned by Spinner. Hose before bro. Bros before hose. Yeah, right. Not that one. But yeah, and then he enters Krabappel into the Teacher of the Year program, and she gets a finalist spot mostly because Bart even says she's helped me, Bart Simpson, and everyone on the committee is gasps that if she helps the devil in blue shorts, she's in. So she goes to the thing, and instead of being at Leisure World or any Orlando place, it's at Epcot, or as they call it, EFCOT, EFCOT. And of course, Skinner is upset, saying that Krabappel, if she wins the prize, she might not go into teaching, and Skinner needs to do something about it. So he gets to Orlando and tries to talk to Krabappel, but of course, Agnes ruins everything as usual. So anyway, Skinner realizes he needs to talk about things with Edna, even though Agnes tries to fuck him over. So he proposes to Edna, and Agnes says, "Great, there'll be three in a bed." Are you fucking nuts, Agnes? You're so manipulative. I think Seymour Skinner would be, even if he's a phony, he would be in a better spot. Nevertheless, Edna has had some great episodes. Marrying Ned, like that came out of left field. I mean, Ned was having problems after Maud left, and he was overbearing towards the boys. We all see that, and Edna was worried and was not happy that Skinner kept stringing her along. So, that was a weird pairing. It actually worked out. Edna took Todd and Rod out of their freaking Christian school that symbolizes Tim Tebow and all that, and puts them in, gets them new shoes, and they get all these temporary tattoos, and Ned goes bonkers over that, saying, "These are my boys, how dare you?" And Edna says, "I'm trying to get them normalized. They're just freaky." And of course, it does raise the point that Ned, when he's with the boys, he says he's raising the boys, but he's raising the boys to be terrible and all that. Edna dies and all that. We all know that after the episode with Sergeant Bob and all that. It was just sad to see her die. And unfortunately, Rod and Todd go back to being with an overbearing Ned, although Ned tries to fix things with people. But Edna deserved better. She was a great teacher, she was a great character, and she was a good foil for Bart and all that throughout the first 20 plus seasons. So, you know, it was good. And Bart actually had a care for Krabappel, even though that he probably didn't want anyone to know. So that's it for this episode. Next week is a special Saturday edition, and we will not be doing a Simpsons episode. It is going to be in the top 40. It will be episode 16. And you'll be thinking, if it's not The Simpsons, what are you talking about? Well, remember when I dropped the line that Lisa has a grudge against somebody from another cartoon? Well, set your eyes on Family Guy in their 2014 season premiere. That Simpsons guy. because we are going to talk about that episode because it does involve The Simpsons. It does involve them having to do a 1 hour show instead of 30 minutes. And Lisa's jealousy towards Meg. Don't believe me? Well, I'll tell you all about it.